All right, so why is this important? Let's look at the case of Japan. The year is 1985, okay? And this is something called the Plaza Accord. The Plaza Accord was between the central bankers and the finance ministries of different nations, but primarily between the United States and Japan. Japan at this point was an export powerhouse. It was the second largest economy in the world, high savings rate. People really didn't want to buy American goods, but Americans love Japanese goods. Okay, so it's creating this trade imbalance. And Japan was growing and becoming an economic powerhouse. So America said to Japan, listen, you guys need to restructure your economy because your consumers aren't spending any money. This creates trade imbalance. And ultimately, this will lead to structural problems in Japan. So what we're going to do is we will revalue the Japanese currency. We will appreciate it against the US dollar. Okay? So as Japanese consumers, you're able to buy more from the United States. Now, Japanese economists thought this was a terrible idea. But because America has military bases in Japan, Japan didn't even have a choice in the matter, right? And so this created the Japanese explosion of wealth, okay? So they were by Rockefeller Plaza in New York City, and this created a fear of Japan in the United States. So to demonstrate to you how ridiculous the situation was, in the year 1990, in Kyoto, the imperial grounds, okay? I'm not talking about the city of Kyoto. I'm talking about the imperial grounds in Kyoto, okay? That land by itself was worth more than Canada as a country. You could sell the imperial grounds of Kyoto and go buy Canada for yourself, okay? That's how ridiculous the situation was in Japan. Because of the appreciation of the yen, cheap money flooded into the nation of Japan, and so people were speculating on real estate and the stock market. Okay, which led to ultimately economic collapse in Japan. So as you can see, from the 60s up until about the 90s, Japanese growth was pretty strong. But after the Plaza Accord, you saw a steep drop. Okay, the Plaza Accord, by appreciating the yen, by giving Japanese easy money, it destroyed the Japanese economy. All right, so remember this. If you want to nuke an economy in a nation, if you really want to destroy an economy in a nation, give them easy money, all right? If I want to destroy you as a person, I'm going to give you $1 million because you're going to take that $1 million and do stupid things with it, okay?
Can you clarify a bit of easy money?
Oh, okay, yeah. What does easy money mean? Easy money just means that you think it's free. You have to work for it. You don't have to earn it, okay? And the idea of easy money is central banks have the power to print money. So if you come to me, I'm a bank, I can actually just give you $1 million. And you take it. That's easy money, right? Okay, that's the idea. Okay, so you don't understand this. It's a hard concept to understand. But banks have that power. They can just print money out of nothing. Okay, and this is what we call easy money. And what this leads to is disaster. Okay, so let's go over the list of how easy money destroys nations. First is that it turns manufacturers into financial speculators. The reason why is maybe you're a car company. Okay, and before you're making good money. Making cars and selling it to the Americans. But if the economy is blowing up, the stock market is increasing, the real estate market is increasing, you're actually better off taking all your savings, your investments, and putting it into the stock market, right? Because you have better returns. And as a corporation, you have to guarantee better returns for your investors, okay? It makes people lazy, selfish, and greedy. That's easy to understand, right? If someone just gave you $1 million, you would not want to work or study ever again in your life. You create too much debt too quickly, you create financial bubbles, corruption between the politicians and the financial elite. You create massive inequality, right? Because it's usually the wealthy who most benefit from this wealth generation. You will increase unemployment and bankruptcies. And the last thing, this is really important, is because all this surge in prices, you price out young people and you destroy the nation's future. You look at the birth rate in Japan, it's about 1. Okay? And the reason why is Japanese young people do not see a future for themselves. Houses are too expensive. The jobs don't pay that well. Okay? Any questions before I continue? Is this fair? Okay. All right, let's continue. But it's not just Japan. It's also the 1997 Asian financial crisis. Remember, this is when South Korea, Thailand, Indonesia their currencies were under attack. And because their currencies were under attack, they became devalued. The problem with this is, before this, Thailand, Indonesia, and South Korea had access to easy money provided by central banks. And so they could afford to buy things overseas, invest things overseas. They could, but once the currency was devalued, they now went bankrupt. Okay? And as a result, the International Monetary Fund was able to step in and privatize the central banks. So that's a playbook. All right. 1989 is important because that's when the Berlin Wall fell and the Soviet Union and communism came to an end. Now it's the Pax Americana, okay? And in the Pax Americana, the system is America would ship its manufacturing overseas. Remember, manufacturing was a source of middle-class wealth generation. Now it's shipping all its manufacturing overseas to focus on financialization. All right? So the idea is that Wall Street would take all its money, all its wealth being generated overseas, and then take it back to America and use it to invest in America, to basically engage in financial games. Okay? Does that make sense? So in other words, before America was manufacturing things like cars and washing machines, now America is just gambling. Okay? The entire economy is based on gambling anymore, and this will lead to something called the 2008 Great Financial Crisis, where the global economy collapses basically. 2001, 9/11, the World Trade Center, right? The terrorist attacks. Again, I'm not a conspiracy theorist, so I'm not going to go into the conspiracies behind this. But it led to something called the War on Terror, where America, for no particular reason, went to Iraq, Syria, Libya, and destroyed these countries. Now, if you're a conspiracy theorist, you would say, well, they destroyed these countries because these countries didn't have central banks, right? So that's what some people say. I would not say that. I'm not a conspiracy theorist. 2008 is the great financial crisis. Why did it happen? It happened because America had become a gambling economy. And so it had to take money and invest it. The problem, though, is there's too much money flowing into America, and there's not enough good investments. So what Wall Street did was it started to invest in really bad investments. It was encouraging people with no money to go and buy like 5 houses, okay? And eventually they would have to default. And when they default, it would create a cascading effect where the entire global economy would collapse. And that's what was the 2008 Great Financial Crisis. To solve this problem, what America did was print money, okay? Look at this, guys. Up until the year 1980, America had about $1 trillion in debt, okay? America was founded in 1776. By the year 1980, about 20 years later, it had $1 trillion in debt. Today, it has now $37 trillion in debt, okay? This is all money printing. Starting about 2008, boom, you see the steep curve going all the way up, all right? The economy in America right now is really screwed up. The reason why is the stock market is worth twice as much as the real economy. Okay, that makes no sense at all. The total value of the U.S. economy is half of that of the stock market. Okay, so this shows you that right now America is living in a fantasy. It's a make-believe economy. The other problem is this massive wealth inequality, okay? So as you can see, the wealthy people are pretty wealthy, but by 1980, the time of Reagan, it shoots all the way up, okay? So you have this massive wealth inequality being created in the United States. This also shows you how wealthy the top 0.001% are relative to everyone else, okay? So the main beneficiaries of all these reforms of this financialization has been the ultra-wealthy in America. At the same time, if you're an average American, all you've seen is your debt go up, okay? Your debt has gone way up. So you can make the argument that the system is designed to exploit the middle class by forcing them into debt so as to enrich the wealthy's investments, okay? That's the American system. And in fact, you can argue the global system. So 2008, the global economy collapses. So what happens, okay, and I believe this is what happened. I don't think this is conspiracy theory. The central banks basically encouraged the Chinese central bank to start printing money, right? And this is important because when you start printing money and you invest in real estate, you need resources. You need to buy resources from Australia, from Brazil. And this is what saves the global economy. And this all looks very impressive, guys. Like, I know when you go outside and you see all these big buildings and fancy railways, it's all very impressive. But remember, okay, this is really important. Behind the veneer of this prosperity are three things. Massive debt, right? Because this money is being printed. So someone has to pay this off. You guys, not the current people, but you guys or your grandchildren or your great-grandchildren, okay? But someone has to pay off this debt. That's number one. Number two is this has created massive inequality in China, right? So the rich are filthy rich and the poor aren't that much better off. And the third problem that's really important is it's created a lot of political corruption, all right? So behind all this veneer are corruption, inequality, and debt. And this is what, okay? So a really important lesson for you guys to understand the Chinese relationship with America is this. There's this very, very famous quote by Charles Baudelaire who said, "The greatest trick the devil ever pulled was convincing the world he didn't exist." Okay? Well, I'm going to paraphrase him, okay? And this is what I think is the relationship between America and China. The greatest trick America played was convincing China it could be rich. All right? This is no different from 1985, the Plaza Accords, when America basically encouraged the Japanese to increase the value of their yen, which led to economic collapse. Well, but when the Americans encouraged the Chinese to print money in about 2008 until about 2015, it basically created conditions for China's economic collapse, okay?